The finance sector is confronted with the two greatest risks it has ever faced: climate change and the collapse of nature. Both crises are intricately connected and pose existential threats.
Where we're heading to by the end of the century is potentially as extreme as civilizational collapse.
This is what a warming planet looks like in reality.
New record temperatures.
A huge evacuation order is in place.
It hasn't rained here for 3 years.
We have begun to tackle the climate crisis, but until very recently, we had completely overlooked the crisis in nature.
In a nature-depleted country, simply put, we wouldn't be able to operate as a business.
Roughly 400 trillion of capital is out there in the global financial system. We know that is many times what is needed to solve the climate crisis, the nature crisis simultaneously.
Nature fundamentally provides us for free with clean air, clean water, natural flood defences. It pollinates our crops, it provides us with food.
And crucially, in our struggle against climate change, nature also absorbs half of the carbon dioxide humanity produces.
The idea of natural capital really parallels the idea of financial capital. If we look after nature's assets of forests and soils, fresh water and oceans, then those dividends can be there indefinitely for the future.
Nature is the ultimate foundation of all our commodities, all our investments, and our entire economic system. In spite of all this, our assault on the natural world, funded by our economic system, has been increasingly devastating and relentless.
Public and private institutions or investments spend 2% of the global GDP per year on incentives which are harmful to nature.
Our food system is by far the biggest cause of destruction of the environment. It's the biggest cause of deforestation. It's the biggest cause of the collapse of biodiversity of wildlife. It's the biggest cause of freshwater stress, and it's the biggest cause of the collapse of aquatic life in our oceans.
It isn't just about what happens here, it's about what we're financing in coal-fired power stations in India or unsustainable fishing practices in Indonesia.
Across the world, nature is in freefall. Populations of species, an indicator of healthy ecosystems, have crashed by an average of 69% since 1970. Globally, so much of our natural world is gone that we now find ourselves reaching irreversible tipping points. Points of no return, after which ecosystems are unable to function. And already their impacts are being felt across the globe.
As climate change gets worse, as nature and biodiversity loss gets worse, those services that the ecological system provided us becomes sacrificed in a way that we then have to pay for.
By destroying the services that nature provides for free, we will shatter the foundations of our economies and never reach net zero. In order for our economy to thrive long-term, the finance sector must tackle the nature crisis. And there is nothing to prevent us from taking the first steps.
It's often said that nature is more complex than climate. What we found through developing the TNFD framework is that businesses can already get started. It provides a framework that businesses and financial institutions can use to manage risks and to disclose information about those nature-related risks and opportunities.
Having critical information on risks paves the way for institutions to set science-based targets to reduce their impacts on nature.
Science-based targets for nature matter because unless we set credible, ambitious targets that we can be judged against. We think that we won't make fast enough progress, and so we've set some incredibly ambitious targets for how we as a retailer both encourage greater biodiversity, but also really thoughtful about how we protect nature in our supply chains.
Knowing what targets companies are working towards allows investors to revolutionise how they allocate money. We need to start by greening our investments.
A transition plan for us is really measuring our impact. We're one of the largest lenders to agriculture in the UK. If I want to halve my emissions, I'm not going to stop lending to agriculture. What I need to do is work really closely with farmers, with the supply chain, to think about how do we make that more sustainable over time.
Investors are in a unique position. They can actually attach some of the criteria for change to their investment.
As a large investment institution, we have an opportunity at the AGM to vote for good practice. There are various ways we can do that. One might be, for example, the board's reward structure, their board pay.
As our portfolios shift capital away from investments that damage nature, we will need to go one step further and invest in actively restoring it.
If we do want to navigate the challenge that's before us, the cheapest, most economically effective way of doing this is through harnessing the power of nature.
We've supported some national pilots where investors invest in the restoration of the natural environment at scale in order to secure future benefits of natural flood alleviation, carbon sequestration, or societal benefits like access to nature, education, and well-being. There are a multitude of bodies who will pay to receive those benefits, and ultimately then there is a financial return to the investors that have financed the landscape scale restoration.
As we embark on this ambitious future, our natural world and climate could become healthy once more. The question that remains is, can we achieve it?
Human beings are amazing. When we put our mind to something, we can fix it. So I'm not worried that we can't sort these issues. I'm worried that we won't do it in time.